Hello, and welcome to Talking Sense, a Pittsburgh Works Together interview series featuring our region's most influential leaders. We'll get their perspectives on jobs, the economy, and other topics vital to Pittsburgh's progress. I'm Doris Nagy, and on today's episode, I speak with Jay Costa, Pennsylvania State Senator for the 43rd District. Senator Costa is at the forefront of addressing key issues that affect the lives of everyday Pennsylvanians. From economic development to electric grid reliability, he examines how our state can secure a more prosperous future for all. He also reflects on his career as an elected official and the changes he's seen in Harrisburg over the years. We hope you enjoy this insightful and informative discussion. Senator Costa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Happy to be with you.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about your background. When were you first elected to legislature, and what changes have you really seen in Harrisburg during that time?
I was elected to the state senate in 1996, so I've been there quite a number of years. By way of background, my background was in law enforcement, also working as an attorney in the Pittsburgh area. Got engaged because I saw an opportunity to be engaged in many matters that really, the state level matters that were impacting people's lives. And it really pushed down from the federal level at that point in time. I saw a lot of activity at the state and thought it was a wonderful opportunity. When the seat opened up, I took a shot and was successful and been there ever since. And I've had the chance to grow in various roles during my tenure in the Senate.
And what changes have you seen in Harrisburg during the time that you started and now?
I think right now we don't have the same level of what I will call congeniality or working togetherness that I think we saw in the past. Friendships that existed among parties, folks from different parties. That's probably the most significant thing. The things on the good side that I think we've seen, a lot more openness and transparency with respect to people's opportunity to know what's happening in Harrisburg. Certainly, social media and the like has changed a lot of that. It wasn't prominent at all when I started, but over the years it's grown in terms of how it's impacted the work we do. But now folks have access to all of our records. They know when we're voting on things. They can watch us on television at times. I mean, there's a lot of things now that the public now has the opportunity to be part of that conversation and watch what we're doing and know more about what's taking place, particularly as it relates to policy issues in that regard.
Sure. And currently, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing the Commonwealth?
Right now, I think our biggest challenge relates to our budgetary situation, and that's related to what's taking place in Washington, D.C., the uncertainty that's happening right now with respect to major changes, major reductions, elimination of agencies that have impact on the things that we do in Pennsylvania, given our core responsibilities. That's our biggest fear. Resources, not knowing whether we're going to receive them. Probably the biggest area is in the healthcare space, where we're very concerned about how this administration in Washington is going to deal with Medicaid expansion program, and the reimbursements we receive. If in fact they fulfill what they've said they would do in terms of reducing the reimbursement rates, it could have $1 billion to $2 billion impact on our revenues, our reimbursements that we get from the federal government, which means that we have to go either determine those programs no longer would be viable, we have to discontinue them, shrink them, or even find a way to be able to cover the multi-billion-dollar loss of revenue, which means we got to take money from somewhere else to offset that, because we don't have the ability to generate $1.5 billion in revenue without raising taxes substantially. And there's no appetite in Harrisburg to do that right now. So we're very concerned about the biggest thing right now is dealing with what's coming from the federal government. On the way over here, I just learned that the Trump administration is stripping the University of Pennsylvania of $175 million in their grant programs. So it's those type of things that are out there that very much concern us, and not knowing where that's going to lead to and what the final product's going to look like. So as we go forward right now through our budget process, the uncertainty is very difficult to deal with, and we'll just have to wait a few more months to see where things stand.
Most definitely. And in terms of jobs, Governor Shapiro says he's sick of losing to Ohio for jobs and economic development. What do you think Pennsylvania could or should do to make itself more competitive in that space?
Well, I think we've already started down that path. I think we're working to reduce the corporate net income tax, for example, as a way to entice businesses to want to come here. In the past, when they looked at Pennsylvania, corporations looked at us and they saw that we had one of the highest corporate net income tax in the country. We had a capital stock and franchise tax. Our net operating loss provisions and sales factors were not very conducive to bringing people here. We've addressed all those type of things. So we're in the process of reducing the CNI down to a very modest and reasonable rate to be able to attract companies. Governor's proposed that we do more in that space as we go forward to accelerate that reduction quicker so we get there sooner. But by the same token, the loss of revenue that would come with that, he's trying to bring back into the Commonwealth through combined reporting, which there's some pushback along those lines. We got to figure out how we make up that lost revenue. The goal would be that by reducing the corporate net income tax, it's going to attract more businesses, which increases the tax revenue we receive, but it takes a little while for that to play out. That's one thing we can do. I think the governor's also taken steps to, last year when we passed what's called the SITES program, where $500 million was invested in 3 spaces. One was going to be in the space of acquiring and remediating and preparing major sites, developable sites, to be able to have investment come here, a company to come here and set up shop by providing with them water and sewer lines, providing electric lines, providing a grid, providing incentives to help clean up the site. That part of it's $400 million. And the other part relates to small water grant program to be able to incentivize other communities to be able to look at providing ways in which they can address some of the issues with regard to water and sewage violations through the EPA. So that's a program that we're working on. And other investments in innovation, for example, the governor's proposing a $50 million innovation fund that we think is important. The large area that I think we have to talk about, we haven't talked enough about, and I think is on the forefront of everyone's mind, is how we address what needs to be done with regard to growing our jobs and growing our opportunity, for example, and with regard to working in the energy space. We have an opportunity to be a major player in the energy space, given the resources we have and the ability we know that we're looking at a shortage with respect to supply of electricity, electric generation. So the goal would be to try to work to put into place programs that would allow us to be a major player along those lines so that we can prepare to address what we see coming with regard to the demand that's going to be there, not having enough supply. That's due to AI, it's due to cryptocurrency, it's electric vehicles, it's data center. All those things are impacting our ability to have sufficient supply of electricity. So we have to find a way to be able to do that. And the argument is, given the fact that we have significant resources to be able to work with, that we can work to be able to create an environment here in Pennsylvania that allows us to be able to be a major player in that space. Governor's proposed what he calls the lightning plan to try to achieve some of that. There's about 6 different parts to it. Probably the most significant parts are going to be the PRESS program. There's PRESS PACER, which are 2 programs, the PACER being the cap and trade piece that puts a cap and incentivizes folks to reduce the impact in terms of emissions. And then the other ones relate to Act 129 changes, which deal with consumer products and providing resources and incentives to electric utility companies to be able to provide resources to put into technology and trying to grow and develop technologies that are more energy efficient, that at the end of the day allow people to save money. They also have the EDGE tax credit program. A number of years ago, we put the EDGE tax credit program in place for a variety of reasons here in the Southwest related to the hydrogen hub that was potential here that we thought we were getting in Pennsylvania, but we're still part of that group to some degree. Also in central Pennsylvania, or more in the Lebanon and Berks County area, milk processing. There was a move to create, I think it was $100 million in tax credits to a milk processor that was going to come in as an entity and grow 100 some jobs, but also make a $300 or so million investment in a facility there. That would have qualified them for, the tax credits there. And then finally, the last piece was in the southeast part of Pennsylvania with respect to biotech and all those type of programming associated with that. For whatever reason, we made it too restrictive, that program. So now we've come back and working with the governor's office to create what's referred to as EDGE 2 and looking to be able to implement some of those things as we go forward. One of them in particular relates to what can be done here at the airport in Pittsburgh. This sustainable aviation fuel that we're talking about, being able to have that as a hub to be able to grow that and sustain what needs to be done at the airports, but also become a major manufacturer in that space as well. So a lot of things along those lines that we have proposed and we're trying to get done. It's just a question whether or not we have the will to get them all done.
Sure. And I think you touched on this. Obviously, energy is a major issue for Pennsylvania. We're a major energy producing state, yet we're on the verge of an electric supply crisis. How do you see the state progressing, and what should the state's energy policy address, if there's anything more you can add to that?
Well, I think we talked about some of them. One of the programs that I think is going to be important is the RESET program. Right now, we know that we need to establish these sites to be so these large facilities can come and have an opportunity to create the generate electricity. But it's not just the ones that are powered by gas; it's other types as well, whether they be other renewable type sites as well. The problem is being able to site these projects. It's difficult to get a lot of times municipal approval in many of these places. And so what this program would do would establish a statewide sites commission or statewide sites task force that would serve as the entity that would provide the site selection. So folks who want to participate, it's not mandated, but folks who want to participate in having this commission help then cite a particular site for the electric generation facility they want to put into place. They could access this, and then they would help make determinations where that might be and whether or not to be able to do it. And what comes with that is the ability to avoid some of the challenges that local ordinances and local governments and communities might present. So we got to do these things. It's important to get done. So that's one of the main ways that I think we can do it. But also taking steps to deal with the tax credits that are out there as well, incentivizing folks to be able to do it in different ways. Through the EDGE program, I think it's imperative that we utilize, in conjunction with the things we talked about, the whole plan work together to be able to achieve what needs to be achieved so that we can become a player, as we mentioned, in this electric generation space.
What other issues are facing the state that maybe we haven't touched on that you'd like to share a little bit with us about?
So outside of the energy conversation, I think we have to have going forward, I think the more immediate need is certainly the budget situation I talked about, not knowing where things are going to stand along those lines. But we have, for example, a transit crisis that's looming, both in Allegheny County and some of the other regional transit agencies, but also in Southeast PA. So we have to get serious about transit. We can have all the great universities, all the great healthcare providers, and everything else that we have, and folks working at the data centers and the centers in downtown Pittsburgh 24/7. If folks can't get to and from work, that's going to be a problem. So we're facing a situation where we may need to make significant route cuts, layoffs, and also increased fares. That's not where we want to be. So I think the state needs to step up and make an investment in our transit funding to be able to ensure that we have the ability for people certainly to get to and from work, but also folks to get in their daily lives, our seniors, to get to doctor appointments, for example. In so many other ways, transit plays a major role. And that's what I think we have to focus on.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is in the healthcare space, the impact of Medicaid funding will impact rural hospitals, impact nursing homes. So I think particularly in the rural space, we have a problem with a lot of hospitals that are struggling. Up in Sharon, PA, a hospital had been closed for 2 months now. They finally reopening it because somebody from California is coming in to help save it. We've got issues up in Scranton where there's a hospital maybe closing up there. Chester County, we're in the middle of a company, Prospect and Corroser, that are looking to close that hospital. We're struggling to find the resources to keep it open and hopefully find someone to step in and take it over. We're keeping our fingers crossed that happens. Otherwise, that's a community hospital that'll be closed. So hospitals both in urban settings or semi-suburban communities, but also rural areas, they're struggling and they need help. And we need to make changes along the lines of investments in rates and also making sure that we're able to stand them up. Otherwise, the lack of healthcare delivery in many of these communities, particularly rural Pennsylvania, with respect to some of the specialties, is really a problem, and we have to address it. So those are some of the things: energy conversation, budget, transit, hospital and nursing home situation we have to address. Those will be the 4 or 5 things that you'll see us address as we go forward in the next 3 or 4 months.
Sure. And where can our viewers and listeners go to learn a little bit more about you and your policies?
They can go to senatorcosta.com. That's our website that they can look at, and all the things that we've talked about and others are located there. They can also go to our Senate Democratic Policy page as well, where they'll be able to see our caucus priorities as well.
Fantastic.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, Senator
Thank
Costa,
you.
for joining us.
I enjoyed our conversation.
Yes,
Thank you.
me too. Thanks so much. And thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to see you at our next episode soon.